80% of all managed service providers that get breached will be out of business within a few months. And hackers are now specifically targeting MSPs because they not only breach the MSP, but they can also get access to all of their managed service clients. And even if you don't currently offer cybersecurity services, your clients will still blame you because you're their IT guy and you're supposed to know how to secure their clients. In this episode of IoT Playbook, I interview Chris Christensen, the owner of Brightly Insurance, a leading provider of cybersecurity insurance. In this episode, you'll discover how adding the right cybersecurity insurance policy will protect your business and give you peace of mind, and how you can make money selling cybersecurity insurance even if you're not an insurance agent, and why adding cybersecurity insurance is one of the best ways of closing an IoT managed service deal, and what features every cyber policy needs to have in order to be useful for you and your clients. And finally, what you want your cyber insurance company to do for you in the event your clients get breached. So head on over to podcast.iotplaybook.com to learn how you can add cybersecurity insurance to your business and immediately provide value to your customers. All right. Hey, this is Mark Smith, host of IoT Playbook, and I'm really excited about this episode. I'm here with actually a good friend of mine, Chris Christensen, who is a partner in the Brightly Insurance Company, which is a cyber insurance company. And the reason I'm bringing Chris on in this episode, because you may be thinking, what in the world does cyber insurance have to do with IoT Playbook? And I'm going to tell you why. I've become increasingly concerned about cybersecurity, both when I taught the MSSP Quick Start class and now with IoT Playbook, because IoT MSPs are really on the front line. And not only you're vulnerable for your own business if you get hacked, but your clients could get hacked. So that's why I'm bringing them on. But before I do that, hey, Chris, why don't you tell me a little bit about why you decided to create Brightly, kind of your background leading up to that too.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mark. So I have an extensive history and experience in the insurance industry, even starting as an agent decades ago, becoming more highly involved with technology companies in the space over the last 15 years. And what we've really seen over the last few years with the proliferation of technology and in the insurance space was what they refer to as insurtech, was the opportunity to really simplify what has become over time a very slow, cumbersome, and difficult, complex environment to navigate as you try to mitigate risk for your own need. And try to get your own coverages. So out of that, I joined a group that whose core solution is Brightly Insurance, and it's really about delivering critical insurance coverage to mitigate prevalent risks that exist out there in our day-to-day, and especially as we move forward into greater technology. Further threats and opportunities that are new daily. We needed to make this easy for people. We needed to have a high quality product. We needed to make it very simple for people to attain and acquire.
Now, one of the things because cyber insurance has been around for a while, and I have been noting more and more, I guess in the beginning, when people got breached, a lot of cyber insurance companies just weren't even honoring the claims and maybe saying, hey, in this 15-page application, you said you did this, but you really didn't do this. So it was really, really complicated. But obviously, you can't just keep denying claims or you're going to be out of business. So now, I imagine they're paying out. And because a lot of these insurance agents, they don't know diddly about cybersecurity. So they're selling this policy, maybe it's attached to an E&O thing. They don't actually know what this client had in terms of cybersecurity. So that's a big risk out there. And with you guys sort of launching what I call Cybersecurity 2.0, you guys are trying to take a different different approach to this at this point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Mark. I think what we've seen over time, because it's become an emerging risk over the last decade or possibly a little bit more, insurance carriers had to provide some sort of product to mitigate that risk for their clientele. Now, at the end of the day, their sales team ends up being the insurance agency. And these agents, to be frank, and I've been one, they're salespeople at heart. They're trying to make a customer happy. And frankly, they don't have time, especially with a brand new and volatile sort of environment, to really understand all the coverages that are out there, all the risks that could be in place. So what's happened over time is you have had carriers that will provide a product. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, when a situation occurs and a claim does go back to the insurance carrier, it goes to their claims adjudication department. And honestly, what happens with those folks, their job is to try to figure out how not to pay the claim.
Mm-hmm.
As we've moved forward, what we've begun to understand and why we think that this is a wonderful solution and a wonderful place to kind of put a stake in the ground is this is going to be with us until the end of time. It's going to become more complex. It's going to become more difficult for people to keep up with. So we've determined that we're going to understand the regulations. We're going to understand the tools that are out there that can mitigate risk, whether it be encryption or dark web scanning, et cetera. But a critical key to that is not only providing those tools, but having the sort of coverage where if something does occur, it's easy to understand, it's easy to obtain, and it's easy to get a hold of the people that can actually service, support, and help you at the end of the day and maintain your business with integrity.
See, and I think that's a big difference because, look at some other cyber policies, and let's say that you were to sell a cyber policy and your client gets breached. It kind of says, contact this lawyer. Like, okay, wait a second. Very clearly, there's a separation between the insurance company and the people who actually handle the breach. So they're calling some breach, some forensics guys, and they're assembling a team on the fly, which is really, really expensive. And what makes you guys different? I mean, you guys actually you guys are part of the breach remediation company. I mean, the company that will actually go fix and make somebody whole you're part of that. It's one and the same.
Yeah, that's exactly right. In fact, Brightly Insurance is simply the insurance-facing solution in a broader group of companies. And part of that broader group of companies actually has dealt in the cyberspace for remediation and restoration since the early 2000s. So we have great expertise within our own family of handling these things. And one of the reasons that we have such acumen in the space, that we have favor with the carriers to provide such a good policy at a very competitive price, is because we bring our own people into the preparation piece. If there is a breach, we take them through the forensics side. We understand the restoration and even the data restoration, even to the extent that we will help with the public relations and notification side if such a breach occurred.
So, and I think also because the breach remediation company is part of your company, that feedback loop that you're getting in terms of what are the things that people are actually experiencing is really critical. So, for example, I was reading just in last week on MSSP Alert website about a Colorado MSP. I'm reading from this MSSP Alert. In fact, I could even just, share my screen here, but so here's this company, Colorado MSP, IT service provider. So they get hacked basically through their remote access software. Whoops. And then 100 of their clients, dentistry practices, they also get ransomware. So, if you were to actually go click over to this company right now, I did, it looks like they're out of business. And from what I can tell, that's pretty much what happens. If an MSSP gets hacked, it's pretty much game over time because their clients sue them, and it's incredible type of thing. So, I mean, not only do you got to get your own cybersecurity, I know a lot of people may have put off that, saying, well, I don't want to get in the cybersecurity business because that'll increase my risk. It doesn't matter. You're an IT guy, so your client thinks, They expect you to do security. But beyond that, even if you took care and, some piece of software you're using, like your remote access, it gets hacked, now you're vulnerable. I don't know what these guys had in terms of cyber insurance, but I would imagine, that's something that you guys take a look at. So what you don't just offer cyber insurance, you actually package it with other cyber services to help prevent breaches, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we have some things to illustrate that. I think in a moment here we'll show you the breakdown.
Yeah.
We really have three phases that we speak to, and that's the preparation and assessment piece. Where you ensure that you have an understanding of the risks that are available. You have an understanding of the resources that are available to train staff potentially. Secondarily, if an actual breach occurs, what we find interesting is more often than not when our clientele contacts us because they think they've been breached, it really hasn't been a breach. It's just been maybe a lapse in security or a firewall has been adjusted and somebody touched something, but there actually hasn't been a breach that has occurred. The beauty is, with our company, you can actually reach out to a security expert, and they can walk you through that process to understand whether it is a claim or not. If it is a claimable incident, we go through the forensics to understand what specifically happened, be it phishing, ransomware, or what have you out there. We'll go in and ensure that we get that cleaned up, taken care of. And then we actually handle the backside, which is fairly unusual in the environment. How many clients do you need to notify? Are there public relations items, whether it be legal or just social, that you want to make sure that you take care of to maintain reputation? Because as you know, with any of these scenarios that go on, there's really two components. The one component being, there is a financial exposure that's ridiculous. And without the proper insurance coverage, you don't have a prayer in the world to recover that. But number two, can you, and probably harder, is can you repair the reputation? And as you just cited with the recent breach with the Colorado MSP, we're having a hard time even finding that they're existing. They're not responding to anything. There's no blog. There's no response. Odds are, and what we have found, even outside of the MSP expert space, what we have found is that a vast majority of businesses will not survive the next 6 to 12 months in business once they've suffered a breach.
So I think it's important for, listeners to take that into consideration. If you do get breached, and especially if you're serving other clients, it's probably a game over situation. So you need this cyber insurance for yourself. But I think one of the things that we recently did together, there was an episode of IoT Playbook with Walter Sillen, and he was talking about taking on some healthcare clients with a cold storage solution. Well, anyway, one of his larger hospital clients has asked him to do some interesting work with Azure and Power BI, and as a result of that new contract, they asked him, in order to get the contract, to have $15 million worth of cyber insurance because he's handling their personally identifiable information. So in this particular case, you guys can actually, you work with him to kind of come up with a policy up to that level.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And we have a very clear understanding that MSP clientele vary from group to group or entity to entity. And in this case with Walter, he had a very specific need because of one, the volume, and number two, the sensitivity of the type of information that was being held as it relates to HIPAA and PII, as well as other regulatory constraints. But we actually took the time to talk with him, work with him, and find a policy that would specifically fit his needs, so that he could maintain the relationship with the client and move forward and what he does well.
So, yeah. So, one of the things I've been doing with you guys, with you and some of your colleagues, is kind of doing a lot of due diligence. And we've had a lot of hours of conversation.
Yes, we
I'm
have.
really impressed with the company, because even one of your other sister companies, they're actually cybersecurity experts. They do cybersecurity work for enterprise level companies. They have a virtual CISO, security officer on staff. So you guys have all of this background of cybersecurity, as well as breach remediation, as well as the insurance, all in the same family of companies. And quite frankly, I have not seen that before. And so I'm actually, we're actually talking now about making your insurance not only available to the to channel partners, which they should have for themselves. And I know you have a policy right now that you try to make so simple that you could get like $1 million of coverage with like 6 questions or something like that.
That's exactly right, Mark. And what we found and unique in the environment, as you discussed, we saw an opportunity to bring these disparate pieces together. And when you're dealing with one entity that has the appropriate interaction, that understands and has the experience and history to take care of these sorts of items, it really has given us power to bring the best product to the market at the most competitive price. So you mentioned this $1 million coverage piece. Because of our expertise, because of our history, we've garnered a relationship with the insurance carrier that allows us to provide that $1 million coverage limit with simply 6 questions. I mean, it might be a 2-minute process to get that sort of insurance. What's interesting to me, because of my history in the space, if you go through a typical agent and go through the traditional way that you get a policy through a paper application, or even if it's a digitized application, it's typically 4 to 5 pages long, 40 to 50 questions long. And it takes quite a while to get back and forth with the desk underwriter at the carrier, through the agent back to you. But we've simplified it down, leveraging our distribution technology, leveraging AI, artificial intelligence. We're down to 6 questions, and as long as those are satisfied, I mean, you have a policy and coverage that's bindable immediately.
Now, this policy too, because one of the things that I think our audience they may think that, hey, if I were to, okay, it's one thing to buy for themselves, which I think everybody should have who's listening, okay? But let's turn it around. Let's say they wanted to sell it, because one of the new things that I just launched, which is called the IoT Playbook Offer Builder, it's really designed to teach you to, find a product, find a niche market, come up with your craft your unique selling message, but then put an offer together. And what I believe is going to happen, and I'm going to recommend everybody do, is wrap an IoT managed service around, and have cyber policy inside every single offer. And here's why. When you sell any kind of IoT managed service, your potential client is going to ask you, well, wait a second, am I introducing something new on my network that's potentially a security risk? And of course, you can say, well, yes, but it's secure at the gateway, the sensors are secure, we encrypt the data, all that kind of stuff. But wouldn't it be better if you could say, and by the way, the whole thing's backed up by our $1 million guarantee,
Sure.
around this cyber. And so I'm now recommending right here on this that everybody consider selling a cyber policy, along with their IoT managed service. Because what are we talking about here, Chris? For $1 million policy, about how much is it going to cost their end client?
Well, and it could be a very simple range, but it's relatively small dollars relative to the protection it provides.
Yeah.
It could be as low as $300 or $350, might be as high as we might be pushing 4 figures annually, but incredibly reasonable, given other coverages that these businesses need, given the complexities that are out there, and half the time, even if they have something in place, they frankly don't know what it's really good for.
No, and I can tell you that most of those cyber insurance policies, the people have no clue about what IoT managed services are, right? So the fact that you've taken that into consideration and understand what this audience does, I think is a big deal. So let's break that down. So you think about a 300x policy dollars, you're talking about less than $30 a month you're adding to your IoT managed service, right? The client won't even feel it, but they will definitely feel better about having their data, backed up by this whole, $1 million type of a policy, right? They're going to sleep better at night. You're going to sleep better at night. Look, you're going to do everything you can to secure this thing, right? I'm talking about the IoT managed service provider. But, in case somebody comes up with something that you're unaware of, it's so great that you're backed up. So let's say something were to happen, right?
Sure.
I mean, what really happens? I mean, your team kicks in. Let's say it's a ransomware deal.
Right.
Like what happens?
Well, at that point, and what you typically find in the insurance space, and what I refer to as the traditional workflow, if you will, as soon as a claim happens, you're typically not going to the agent. That's who you want to go to because that's who
Right.
you have the relationship with. But they're going to refer you straight to the carrier in the claims department. You call the claims department, they take there's an initial intake of information. Then again, as I stated before, their job is to try to figure out how not to pay a claim because frankly, that's what they get paid to do is keep expenses down, keep the reserves on hand, et cetera, keep the shareholders happy. In our case, you don't call the carrier first. You call our remediation team that's going to meticulously go through what you've just experienced, justify whether or not it is a claim. If it is a claim, we will help you go to the carrier with validation, justification, and understanding of what really occurred. So in the case of a legitimate claim, and I think we'll go through some of our coverage components momentarily, but in the case of a legitimate claim, we will disposition that argument appropriately so that that claim gets taken care of, so that you've satisfied, the risk that you've just been exposed to.
Hmm.
As we walk through that process, and again, as I said before, we'll go ahead and help you with your systems. We'll help with data restoration. We can go through the forensics process to ensure that it doesn't occur again, see where the weakness was within your system environment, even to the extent, again, of going to the public relations side and dealing with the legal entities in terms of notification if necessary.
And I think one of the advantages too, because it is a services focused sort of policy, therefore the IoT MSP, whatever, they don't have to be a licensed insurance agent. They can actually sell this.
No, not at all. And in fact, I mentioned, my time in the insurance space, I did start as a licensed agent. I'm no longer licensed. But what I can tell you is because of our relationship, because of how we've structured our company, and obviously, and with the departments of insurance, we do need to stay in compliance through licensing. But underpinning Brightly Insurance is a fully licensed P&C insurance agency in all 50 states. And that's how we handle that. And because the relationship with our carrier has allowed us to drive traffic to this platform or website, it's the same as going straight to the agency because everything gets processed through the agency. So it doesn't matter if you're putting the information into the system, I'm putting information into the system, the MSP or even the client's putting the information into the system.
Okay. So if an IoT MSP wants to actually sell insurance, they could actually make money off of this as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a commission available. All right. So why don't you show that screen, pop up your screen about, what that coverage looks like. And, as you're looking at the screen, people who are watching this video, I want you to be thinking about it wearing two different hats. One, for yourself, buying a policy for yourself so it covers your company. And then two, thinking about selling it to your clients, but wrapping it you're not selling it as a standalone thing, but you're wrapping it again with your offer, your your IoT offer, and bundling it in.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and share here.
Okay.
And you should be seeing that.
Yep, I'm seeing it. Yep.
Yeah. So, as you can see with the header, and Mark and I have had this conversation throughout the session today, but both for you as the MSP, MSSP, and for your clients, just a couple of highlights here. And this is a high level sort of 60,000 foot view. And As I mentioned earlier, we do have folks that can support very specific needs that you can reach out to, including myself. But we do have coverage limits for a cyber policy up to $50 million. Now, that's an extreme, but it's important to understand that if you do walk into that client environment where they might require you to have that much coverage, it's important to know that you have a single source that you can go to. Now, for your clients, you'll see that we do have a 100,000, 250,000, and the $1 million that Mark and I talked to that take up to 6 questions to answer. But I'm going to mention this. For a lot of the MSP clients that exist out there, 100,000 and 250,000 are ample and far adequate to take care of their needs. Those are absolutely instant issue. There's not a question asked other than who's the client, what's their address, so we can identify a specific and unique policy. But there's no underwriting questions whatsoever. And again, the reason for that is because it's accompanied by these cyber services that we've discussed throughout the session today. I will mention this, and for those of you that have some understanding and are astute as it relates to the insurance industry, the carrier with whom we work is A+ rated by AM Best Company, which is the highest rating that one can garner. I'll also add that it is an admitted company as opposed to excess and surplus. So for those of you that understand that will be important to you. For those of you that maybe that's foreign to you, admitted is what you want to be pushing to your clientele. As we get into coverage components, you'll see that it's a unique policy in that it's one of the few that exists in the market that actually handles regulatory fines and penalties. We'll handle attorney fees with defense and settlement. And then we go into additional components like website media liability. If there's a poor claim made on a website or something were to happen, crisis management, fraud prevention, depending on the way that people might be trying to hack an environment. Business interruption. As you know, if we all have to stop because we had a breach or ransomware until something is paid or whatever the case is, revenue generation stops in its tracks. So there's actually a coverage limit for business interruption. We talked about data recovery. We help with that. Cyber extortion, ransomware, which is what we're seeing most prolifically of late. Social engineering fraud, and even down to the less technologically geared telecommunications fraud or e-theft. Because more often than not, we're finding that human error is what's created the breach as opposed to maybe a ransomware scenario, which are the things that we typically hear about because those are the highly engineered environments. And then again, as a reminder, for anything kind of out of the box, or if we need to exceed limits specific, especially to the MSP or MSSP, we want to make sure that we cater to your specific need, provide a policy that absolutely speaks to the requirements that your clients may have asked you for.
And because they can actually earn, a commission on this for selling it, then honestly, the way I'm looking at this, and I don't know what the exact numbers are, but you don't have to sell a whole lot of policies to kind of cover the one you bought for yourself. Right?
No, not at all. Absolutely not.
So, I'm not supposed to say the free word here, but hey, guys, buy it for yourself, sell a few, cover your costs, and you're good to go. But honestly, you and your clients are going to sleep a whole lot better. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be a sales closer by having this in there. Because, if you think about other things you hear on TV, like, hey, identity theft is happening every 5 seconds, but blah, 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 the $1 million guarantee, right? It's that a lot of times when we talk about all our benefits and features, we have the curse of knowledge, us techie guys. We go bury someone with features and they'll go, and like, but it has all backed up by this $1 million cyber, like, what? I get that. That sounds impressive. Yep. Sounds like you. So I honestly think it's going to be one of the greatest sales and marketing tools for the IoT MSP is to be able to wrap and stick in their bundle a cyber policy.
Well, and that's exactly right, Mark. And even if you look at, we cited the recent ransomware breach on, just a few days ago here with the MSP in Colorado. mean, even had he sold, his 100 dentist office, a cyber policy, you would so far cover, by multiple X the cost of even a large cyber coverage for yourself. It's just a no-brainer at the end of the day.
And I think, there's also included in there, I think you've got some end user education and some other things in there that
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
found.
Let me so to be a little bit more expansive on, and we talked about this throughout as well, and again a high level overview, but we've talked about the three key components or three key phases of our cyber services. So we do have the consulting and assessment, and as you can see, it's protocol training for staff members, it's compliance assistance, it's data evolution of cyber risk, it's understanding your environment and preparing you as we step into the future and keep facing new and fresh risks that these folks keep coming up with. Secondarily, you do have that fraud specialist assistance, breach and ransom response. Certified forensics examiners getting their hands on these. So again, that speaks to the experience with which our team, holds. And then unlimited access. So there's no limit on the amount of times or amount of time in total that you can access or leverage one of our specialists that does this on a day-to-day basis. And then finally, as you can see, the monitoring and interaction, whether it be media outlets or legal outlets, whether it be notification and very frequently, and we've gone through some situations even of late with, well over a seven-figure notification sort of situation where it's over a couple of million clients were breached that needed to be notified. To the extent that we've even done the public relations piece for rather large entities, to get out on the news and try to begin to recover their reputation.
And I know you guys, because I've been talking to you guys are totally up on, the various regulations like HIPAA and the new California privacy.
Absolutely.
And, you're even looking at tools right now that would, that we'll be introducing, to this audience that actually could get your clients and you into safe harbor so that, some of this, you don't even have to disclose or make
Absolutely.
public something if you're in safe harbor because your data is encrypted or whatever. So because you guys are staying up on all this compliance stuff, you're able to adapt and, this services and insurance to meet all these changing conditions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And one of the interesting things I've found, and not uncommon, but so many of the companies that are trying to get into this space are trying to strictly use, the fear factor, and it's legitimate and it's appropriate. But at the end of the day, we do have a group that stays so up on these, whether you're in California with California Consumer Protection, whether you're in New York as it relates to Section 500, wherever you might be geographically, we are so up on those items. And as you mentioned, Mark, to the extent that we can help you be displaced or be dispositioned as being in safe harbor, and once in that place, you don't even have to notify. So the risk, the fear, all of those things is frankly eliminated.
That's great. That's really good. So what if somebody's interested in, in finding out more, either for themselves and or for their clients, what would they do? What should they do?
Well, I think there's just a couple of easy things to do, and we'll go here. I mean, there's a couple of places to go. I can either be contacted directly, or as you can see, brightlymssp.com. I think I have it on the prior slide here.
Okay. So you created a special URL just for MSSPs. I'll throw in IoT MSPs just for that group that's tailored for them. Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm also going to put this link in the show notes that goes with this episode and other places. But so brightlymsssp.com is the place to go. And you also flashed up there on the screen your actual personal contact stuff as well.
Yep.
Which is
absolutely
great. Yeah. I'm super excited that you're here. I feel a sense of urgency. I think I've just read one too many stories about, it's one thing when you see an isolated company here and there, but now I'm seeing MSPs being breached and all of their clients on top of it. And that's really concerning to me. And so that's on the sort of the fear side. But as you said, there's an incredible opportunity, I think, on the revenue side to wrap a cyber policy around an IoT managed service offering. So, hey, why not make some money, while you're essentially selling peace of mind to yourself and your clients?
Absolutely, and sleep well at night, and that's really our goal. Can we put together an environment that is simple, it's elegant, it's efficient, it's not complex, everybody wins, and at the end of the day, we know that this vertical is out there trying to help their clients and certainly sell services to make revenue.
Excellent.
So it can be a part of that solution.
Well, thanks for being here, Chris, and for really, taking the time to really learn this whole IoT managed service business and really stay up on all the compliances so that, my members don't have to be as, there's so much stuff to learn. But thanks for being here and offering this thing.
Absolutely. Mark, thank you so much for the invitation to participate, and thank you for your time.
All right.